But the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that happened.
So for you, that was always priced into the decision?
Yes.
Talking points have changed, haven't they? A defiant President Biden in his first interview since Afghanistan's collapse, defending his handling of America's withdrawal, saying he saw no way for the U.S. to leave without sparking chaos, and expressing no regrets over the enormous consequences. Joining us now, former intelligence officials who have worked on both sides of the aisle. Dave SCHANZER worked with congressional Democrats on Homeland Security committees, including helping with legislation for then-Senator Joe Biden. Nathan Sales served as the ambassador at large and coordinator for counterterrorism under President Trump. Gentlemen, appreciate you both being with us. Dave, go back to your time working with Joe Biden. Would you have advised him to give that answer to that question?
Well, that was a long time ago. It was 20 years ago when I worked for him. I did work on Homeland Security a lot more more recently. Listen, I think the intelligence that was provided during the Obama administration, during the Trump administration, then with Biden, is that if we were to withdraw, the Taliban was going to eventually take over. And the timing of that, of course, were they going to last 6 months? Were they going to last a year?
Dave, pardon me. It just wasn't the question I asked. It's an answer to a question, just not the question I asked. The question is, should he have said he had regrets, and should he have said we could have done this better? Or do you agree with him that there was just no other way to do it, and we did the best we could, and hindsight's 2020?
Listen, I don't know the answer to the question whether there was logistically a better way. Obviously, everybody would have liked to have avoided the chaos. The point I'm trying to make is that if we were to withdraw, we can argue about the question about whether withdrawal was a good idea, but that was a Trump policy and that was eventually the Biden policy. The Taliban was going to take over, and all of these scenes that you've shown over the last half hour were going to occur on somebody's watch. The Afghan Air Force and the Army were going to lose, and those weapons that we provided them over decades were going to turn over to the enemy's hands. Of course, we should have gotten our people out more quickly and earlier. But if we had closed the embassy, let's say, in July, the government might have melted away even more quickly, and there still would have been chaos. So
people are saying that the decision to close Bagram as well sort of indicated to the Afghans that we were cutting and running, and does that. Ambassador Sales, I want to bring you into this conversation because this was essentially President Trump's deal, according to the Biden administration. Is that a fair critique?
Hey, Leland, thanks for having me on. No, I don't think that's fair at all. There's an important difference between the Trump administration's approach and the one we're seeing the Biden administration pursue today. Under the Trump administration, the United States made a deal to leave Afghanistan if and only if the Taliban kept their end of the bargain. And that meant the Taliban had to break with al-Qaeda. They've never broken with al-Qaeda. Taliban also promised that they would negotiate in good faith with the Afghan government. Again, the Taliban broke their word. Stop me if you've heard this story before.
But is perhaps making a deal with terrorists who are known to break their word the fault of the person who's making the deal, not the fault of the person who keeps breaking their word? Shame on us for being fooled twice?
Well, I think the Trump administration's approach to Afghanistan wasn't perfect by any stretch, but it's a heck of a lot better than this. We didn't have to. If I could finish the thought, we didn't have to go through with a withdrawal that was conditioned upon Taliban promises after the Taliban broke those promises. Once the Taliban voided the deal, there's no obligation for the United States.
Hold on, gentlemen, hold on one second. Gentlemen, stop. In fairness, the Biden administration's backed out of a number of deals or lack of deals or policy changes that the Trump administration did. This seems to be the one they kept. Dave, here's the president again, then we'll get your thoughts on the other side.
We've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
What I thought was we have to gain control of this. We have to move this more quickly. We have to move in a way in which we can take control of that airport. And we did.
For what it was worth, it was 48 hours ago, not 4 or 5 days ago. But either way, Dave, as you think about this, you go through the talking points of the administration. I wrote some of them down, which was first they were prepared, everything was going to be fine, there wasn't going to be chaos. Then it was an intel failure. Then we trusted the Taliban. Then it was all Trump's fault. Then they knew all along that it would be chaos. And we heard that from you just now. So I'm wondering, which one is the best one to go with?
Well, Leland, let me make this point. The president said multiple times in his July 8th discussion that he didn't trust the Taliban at all. And there's no reason that he should have, because over the course of, since the agreement was made in February, as the ambassador rightly pointed out, the Taliban didn't abide by any of the terms of the deal. They didn't extricate al-Qaeda from their ranks. They didn't engage in negotiations. They didn't even start negotiations until December. And what happened? Trump rewarded them with a reduction of troop levels to 4,500 right before the election, and then went down to 2,500, even though they were violating all the terms of the deal, and the Taliban were gaining strength and taking over territory. So the situation was a very dire one. I believe, certainly, that logistically, timing-wise, in retrospect, clearly,
I think what I'm hearing from both of you guys is you both agree. You guys, gentlemen, I really apologize. We got to run, but I think what I'm hearing from both of you guys is that America does not come off at its best over the past couple of days, was the images we've seen. Professor, Ambassador, good to talk to you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
Up next, she is the first female vice president in American history. So why have we yet to hear from Kamala Harris on the brutal reality facing millions of Afghan women and children right now? That question with an expert from Capitol Hill. And follow me on social media.